Let's turn now to three extreme climate events around the globe, which many believe are linked by man-made climate change. A record heatwave in Japan, major flooding in Australia, and a deadly avalanche in northern Italy. Let's focus first on Italy, where at least 7 people were killed and 8 others injured when parts of a glacier collapsed in the northern Italian Alps. Snow, ice and rock were sent cascading down the slopes of Marmolada, the highest mountain in the area. Well, video of the incident shows a massive ice sweeping away everything in its path. Rescue teams have been using helicopters and drones to try to find the 19 people who are still missing. The search operation is based out of a town nearby called Canazei. Here's the mayor.
The drones were in operation all night and are still in operation now, guided by operators searching for any survivors. The search is continuing safely with the drones while waiting to do a check on the glacier's tightness. At this time, it's difficult for the operators in a dangerous situation.
Well, aerial footage reveals how powerful the avalanche was. You can see the scar running down the side of the mountain. It isn't immediately clear what caused the section of the glacier to collapse, but many have pointed to the effects of global warming. Here's Italy's Prime Minister on what happened.
This is dramatic, and it is certainly unpredictable. But it definitely depends on the deterioration of the environment and the climate situation.
Well, this was the glacier one day before the incident. Temperatures reached a record 10 degrees Celsius at the mountain summit that day. And it's widely known that the climate of the Alps is changing rapidly. Temperatures there have risen by around 2 degrees Celsius over the past 120 years, almost twice as much as the global average. Now, that's driving the retreat of the glaciers there. They're estimated to have lost half their ice volume since 1850. Here's one environmental researcher.
The Alps has been one of the warmest regions relative to normal across the entire globe. So I think it's very reasonable to make that connection that the heat contributed to this event.
Or to Australia now, where thousands of people have been told to evacuate their homes. That's because of torrential rain and major flooding in the country's largest city, Sydney. Sydney is in the state of New South Wales, and several areas there were hit with about a month's worth of rain over the weekend. Roads have been cut off, and officials are urging people to leave their homes when ordered to do so. Here's Australia's Emergency Services Minister.
For many communities, this is the 4th flood that they have seen in less than 18 months. And some of those images are truly heartbreaking, seeing people's homes, their lives turned upside down again, and their livelihoods very much impacted.
Well, experts say the flooding emergency has been made worse by climate change. On that, here's our Sydney correspondent, Shaima Khalil.
Now the question is how often this is going to happen, how bad it's going to be for people. We've heard the State Premier of New South Wales, Dominic Perrottet, saying people should stop thinking about these floods as a once-in-a-century event. Floods like this are going to happen more often. And of course, that then comes to the heart of the climate change debate here in Australia. Climate action is still extremely politically fraught. But we've heard from a federal minister this morning, and he said that Australians should take climate change more seriously, and that whoever is debating climate action isn't looking closely enough.
Well, let's turn now to Japan, which is dealing with its own extreme weather conditions. The final few days of June were some of the hottest ever experienced, with temperatures in some areas reaching over 40 degrees. Well, this is Tokyo, where temperatures were about 35 degrees Celsius for a record 9 consecutive days. And the extreme heat has an impact. More than 5,000 people across Japan have been hospitalised as a result. But another issue is the strain which the heat puts on Japan's energy grid. Our correspondent Rupert Wheatfield-Hayes explains.
The really big problem is a legacy of 11 years ago when Japan was hit by a huge disaster, tsunami, earthquake, and we had the Fukushima nuclear disaster. After that, Japan shut down all of its nuclear plants. Well, that was around about 31% of all Japan's generating capacity was closed down overnight.
Well, Japan has managed to keep its power grid going by bringing back online old gas, oil and coal stations. But the blistering heat has drawn official warnings of a looming power shortage as people rely on their energy-intensive air conditioning units to keep themselves cool. Well, let's talk now to our environment correspondent, Navin Singh Khadkar. And Navin, let me talk to you first of all about what is going on here. Quite a few of these weather events happening. How common are they?
Well, as it's becoming evident around the world, these things are indeed becoming common. And also, scientists have told us that, including a major report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, what it said was all these different systems, whether it's ocean systems, desert systems, mountain systems, different systems have been disturbed because of the warming planet. And as a result, we see all these consequences. Now, having said that, can all of them be attributed to climate change? That is the tricky question. So because, for example, even now, when you're talking about Japan or even Australia for that matter, there is this phenomena called La Nina, which is about cooling of the surface of ocean waters. That is contributing to that. But having said that, scientists do say that these kind of extreme weather events do fit into the long-term projections.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are saying, look, this is to do with climate change and something needs to be done about it.
Yes. So basically, there are two things here. So first of all, the root cause of what is causing this, the emissions, the big deal. So 40% of our CO2 emissions need to be cut down by 2030. That's an immense task. And now after the pandemic and also the energy crisis in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, this is kind of, as you know, energy crisis has kind of further aggravated. And at the same time, because of the impacts, how do you live with those impacts? How do you minimize the damages? Adaptation. So these two are the multi-pronged challenges the world is facing now.
And of course, we're talking about the heat wave in Japan, making people use their air conditioning. And that in turn has put a lot of pressure on the energy grid there, and they're bringing back online gas and coal stations. That in itself is not doing anything to help the environment, is it? It's like a vicious cycle.
Pretty much vicious cycle, yes. And as we heard earlier about this Fukushima disaster, the nuclear disaster, after that, the country was already having this challenge. And now all of this energy crisis and as you're hearing, gas plants coming back. Now, the contribution will definitely be up in terms of emissions. And what it does is Japan government is urging its people to keep their AC on to deal with this heat wave. That needs to be done. But again, for that, the energy will need to be brought in. If you are doing gas-fired power plant, what does it mean? Emissions go up, and that means more warming of the planet.
Navin, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much.